Morning at Outpost 104 doesn't come with a sunrise, because there is no sunrise here. First, the ground shudders. That's the Siege Gong beating. Its low, vibrating hum isn't meant to wake us, but to scatter the clouds of gnats that accumulate over the camp during the night. In this dense air, sound works like a press. It simply crushes the insects into a paste. Then the iron mugs on the shelves start to rattle. And finally, the air is torn apart by the low, guttural roar of a copper horn. In the dense atmosphere of this world, you don't just hear sound. It hits you in the diaphragm like a punch to the gut, making your insides vibrate. We stepped out of the barracks into the damp gloom, wrapping ourselves in rough woolen jackets and pulling leather coal breathers over our faces. Breathing through a layer of pressed wool and charcoal was hard, but without a mask, your lungs here turn to stone in a couple of years. The sky was not visible, only an endless grey murk through which a sickly, diffused patch of light barely broke through. To the right, from the eastern slopes of Winterhold, blew a piercing wind smelling of ice grit. To the left, from the thicket of Darkwood, came a draught of something thick and spicy, resembling the smell of rotting leaves and old copper. I took my place in the squad. Beside me, Red shifted from foot to foot, a rookie just like me, whom I'd been paired with 3 days ago. He rubbed his hands nervously, staring at what we were about to use.
Sector C9.
The foreman's voice sounded muffled, as if through cotton.
1.5 cords before the evening gong. Anyone who doesn't make it remains without rations.
Before us lay the tool known here as the Dwarf's Tooth. It was a heavy, alien construction of dark metal. For us humans, this was technology of an unreachable order, something we could neither repair nor understand. We just knew how to squeeze the brace to start the mechanism, and prayed it wouldn't explode in our hands.
Well, God be with us,
Red muttered, grabbing the rear handle. I took the front one. Red squeezed the trigger, and the 100-kilogram beast suddenly became almost weightless in my hands. An unknown force inside the saw's box compensated for the weight, but the inertia remained. If you jerked it too sharply, the saw would dislocate your arms. The disc of adamant osmium glowed with a cherry-red heat and began to spin with a whistle that climbed into ultrasound. We approached the trunk of a young ironwood, a black stone pillar going up into the fog for 0.5 kilometer. "Go!" I shouted over the noise. We pushed. The disc bit into the tree. It wasn't like sawing firewood, more like cutting stone. No sparks flew. Instead, a fine, hot black dust poured out, instantly clogging our nostrils. Black flour. Without masks, one could quickly earn stone chest and die. A minute later, we were standing in a black cloud. Visibility dropped to 1 meter. The only landmark in this darkness remained the cherry glow of the cutting disc. The sound of work filled the entire space. It became our pulse. Screech, push, vibration. Inhale, screech, push. I, Anton Flint, a nobleman who once studied fencing, now simply held this trembling machine, feeling it shake the soul out of me. We worked in a trance, obeying only the rhythm of the spinning disc. Suddenly, the sound changed. Instead of a steady hum, a grinding noise erupted, and the disc halted. Red yanked the handle, but the instrument was stuck dead in the cut. "Damn it to hell!" he cursed, releasing the brace. "Jammed. Again!" Deep inside the casing, something faltered. The scarlet ether crystal suddenly pulsed with a ragged, painful rhythm, and with every dimming of the light, the 100-kilogram machine filled with a monstrous, true weight. We didn't drag it, we only managed, throwing our whole bodies against it to push the agonizing mechanism out of the cut before it failed completely. The unit crashed onto the springy bed of red pine needles with a dull, bone-like thud and instantly froze, turning into an immovable mountain of dead metal. In the damp morning fog, the last thing we saw was the ominous, bloody glints on the wet roots as the ether inside slowly cooled, turning into coal. Now, only a dense, grey murk stood around us, in which every sound bogged down and drowned, as if in dirty cotton. Around us, in the sector, other saws continued to howl, but here, by our tree, a sudden cottony silence hung. Only the black dust slowly settled, and in this silence, I heard a rustle. Not from the camp, from the forest. From the thick undergrowth, breaking dry branches, a figure emerged. A man in the same grey robe as ours, only turned into rags. He walked strangely, as if his joints had rusted. "Hey!" Red shouted. "Where did you come from?" The man raised his head. I recognized him. Bert, a logger from the 3rd shift. He vanished almost a month ago. But the forest had already marked him. His skin had become rigid and porous, like bark, and through the holes in his clothes, brown moss was visible, having grown directly into the flesh. He hadn't decomposed, he had lignified. His eyes were wide open, but stared through us with cloudy white films. In them was not malice, but some kind of infinite, dull longing of a creature that had lost its way. "Bert?" My voice trembled. He made a strange sound, a dry click in his throat, and lunged at us.
Please, no.
Red
no.
didn't have time to react. Bert knocked him down with the force of a falling trunk. They fell into the mud. I rushed toward them, trying to pull the attacker off, but his body was hard and cold, like wood. Bert didn't fight like a human. He simply crushed with mass, trying to press close? Or strangle? The dead man dug his lignified fingers into Red and silently opened his mouth. Suddenly, a shadow covered us. The foreman appeared out of nowhere. There was no weapon in his hands, only a heavy forged hammer for driving wedges. With an experienced, sparing movement, he kicked Bert off Red, flinging the dead man into the mud, and then, not letting him rise, with a short exhale, brought the heavy hammerhead down exactly on the base of the neck. There was a wet crunch, the sound of a tearing spine. Bert didn't scream and didn't lose consciousness. He had nothing to lose. He simply went limp, like a cut marionette. The signal from the head no longer went to the body. The foreman squeamishly pushed the immobilized carcass away with the toe of his boot.
Get up!
He tossed to Red, who was wheezing in the mud. Other saws began to stop around us. People craned their necks, staring at the body.
Why have you stopped?
The foreman barked so loud, my ears popped.
Seen a circus? The island isn't watching you, and you don't watch it. Start the units. The quota won't fill itself.
The lumberjacks, hunching their heads into their shoulders, hastily returned to work. No one wanted to argue with the foreman when that was in the sky.
That's Bert.
The foreman said quietly, now calmer, looking at us.
Forgot he died.
He raised his head and looked at the sky. There, through the dense veil of clouds, something huge and dark loomed. A shadow that was denser than fog. It hung high, very high, almost invisible, but it pressed on the shoulders heavier than the sky.
See it? The island. Necrotis. It's moving over us. When that thing is overhead, the dead can't rest. They start remembering the way home.
He waved his hand toward the ravine.
Clean up this trash and get to work.
The dwarf's teeth howled again, cutting through the silence and fear. I stood and looked at the shadow in the heavens, and then at the thicket of the forest from where Bert had come. Everything inside me clenched. My hand slipped into my pocket to the compass. I carefully took it out. The needle thrashed like a mad thing, trembling as if fighting an invisible storm. The power of the passing Necrotis tried to knock it off course, to force it to submit to the magnet of death. But it stubbornly, with effort, returned to the same position. It pointed east, deep into Darkwood, to where, among the endless trunks, another such device was hidden. My father. If he is alive, the compass points to him. If he is dead... I looked at Bert's mutilated body, which Red was already dragging to the ravine. Moss, bark, empty eyes. If I go into the forest now, while Necrotis hangs overhead, I will become the same. I'll simply go mad from the whispers of the dead, or run into those who have already risen. I hid the compass. No, not now. I will wait. The island will leave in a month. I have this time to prepare, study the maps, gather supplies. I won't repeat Bert's mistake. I won't become part of the forest. I will walk right through it. This is Anton Flint, recording if anyone finds these logs. The deeper I go into the Darkwood, the stranger things become. The maps are useless here. To truly understand this place, you must hear what I hear. The heavy air, the grinding saws. Listen to the sounds of the outpost to feel the atmosphere of our shift. Immerse yourself in the rhythm before it stops. And if you want to know what I find next, or if I even make it out alive, follow the signal. Subscribe to the Chronicles. Don't let the forest erase us.